Welcome into the Crypto Bunker podcast. Today, I want to just take a look quickly at AAVE. AAVE is one of my bigger bets for this cycle. Um, the chart that I have overlaid on AAVE is actually a chart from Abra Silver. It's literally the same exact chart. And I don't, I discovered this just basically looking for charts that had a similar pattern. But if you look back, a lot of AAVE charts, they actually don't show the full trading of AAVE because it switched from like Lend to AAVE and everything. But this one does. And I think that what we can see is that we're basically in like a perfect cup and handle situation. So you obviously have the rally and then the massive cup. We're talking about a weekly time frame, multiple years of shakeout. Um, and now it's time for the extension phase, which I think will go to around 1,800 to $2,000. And that's really about a 6x from here, which would put us at, 24, maybe 25, $26 billion market cap. Pretty much fully diluted. We'd be at like 26, 27 billion. I don't really see this as a problem because I see on DeFi Llama, obviously Aave is the number one total value locked. I do believe ETH will get to around 12,000. And so when you take, ETH has a similar sort of cup and handle. When you take that as a measured move, you do get around 20,000. But I'm being conservative. And so I'm saying, we get about a 2.5 to 3x from here. Um, and, that's about a $1.5 trillion market cap. So that would mean that Aave would probably end up having, with the increase in stablecoins coming potentially with the Clarity Bill, with the Aave V4 upgrade, where they're going to completely upgrade the whole Aave system to be completely different. Now, that is a little bit risky, but I think it will increase fees. I think it will increase capability. Um, and so if we go back to Aave here, um, and I'll also just kind of take all these things off for a little bit. But basically, what I was going to say is that we're looking at like a 2.5x total value locked in Aave, which is going to put us at maybe 200 billion, and that's without stablecoin increasing. So that's just ETH. That's just the ETH. I'm just assuming that the TVL will increase by whatever ETH is going to be at. So if you think of Aave, let's say having with the increase in stablecoins, let's say it gets to 250 billion within 6 months. Let's say if ETH, or let's say it could be 6 months to a year, but let's say ETH gets to 12K. I think it will happen fast. Personally, I think it will happen by like March to April 2026. And I think that potentially that will be the end of sort of a short-term cycle. I think we could be at the beginning of a super cycle. That's a different discussion. We can also look at the NASDAQ back in the day to compare to ETH and also Aave. Or actually, we can compare Microsoft to Aave as well. It's sort of similar. Accumulation and then big shakeout before finally expanding. So I do believe we could be at the beginning of basically a cycle where we have, 30 to 50% corrections all the way through the cycle. But first we get that big extension and then, sort of the bears are wiped out and we never really go back to these levels again. I don't think people understand the increase in tokenization, the increase in stablecoins, and the increase in the price of ETH are all massively bullish for Aave. And the other thing is that Aave is what I would call brilliantly boring. So I saw this PNC um, advertisement. It said, PNC, which is a bank. It said PNC brilliantly boring since 76 or whatever it was. To me, AAVE is brilliantly boring since 2018. It's one of those things where when you're talking about banking, when you're talking about finance, people want the length of time to be longer for how long you've been operating so that you can gain trust. They don't necessarily want something that's super fast and super low cost and very innovative. They want something that's really secure, that has a, very down to earth, slow moving process. Um, all that they really want is that. Like that's the main thing. And I think that people miss that. They think that Solana with the cost and the speed is going to take finance over, but the Ethereum system is so much better than the traditional finance system already. Magnitudes better, that you actually don't need the speed and you don't need the cost to be that crazy. And they're going to have zero knowledge proofs probably before 2028 built into the system, I would say. So you're going to have the privacy, you're going to have the settlement, you're going to have the, security that you need. Rob Paul says it the best. He says, banks, they all use Microsoft. They don't use Apple. He compares Solana to Apple. It's like a closed-in experience. With Ethereum, you can build all these different EVM chains that then filter back. And people might say like, oh, the bear case also is like, they might say with the stablecoin chains coming, like Stripe and Circle building their own chain, but like all those chains are going to have to be EVM compatible to keep up with the innovation. So regardless of if they are L2s or L1s or whatever, they're most likely, if they're chains and they want a good collateral crypto to be in their system, it's going to be ETH. It's just like Avalanche, right? Like I think probably the biggest collateral in Avalanche DeFi is probably Ethereum. Because it's EVM compatible and ETH is a bigger asset. Um, so yeah, I would say Aave is basically just kind of that secure system, that secure bank in Ethereum, low risk, that is going to attract the most capital. I do have another play. So I have three plays this cycle, basically ETH, Aave, and Eigenlayer as a third one. Eigenlayer is very volatile, but I do think it could also do a 6x from here, maybe a 10x at the most. But I think a lot of these treasury companies are going to have to use restaking to get a better yield than the ETFs. So when the ETFs have a yield, they're probably going to have like a 2% yield. And SharpLink is able to get like 3% by staking. But, in the future, maybe their ETFs will get a little bit more innovative, and these treasury companies will have to restake more and more. So there's another sort of total value locked. So I'm basically betting that the two biggest total value locks in DeFi Llama, Aave number one, Eigenlayer number two, will get to, these valuations. I mean, say we have 25 billion in Eigenlayer right now. If ETH 3x's from here, you'll have around 75 billion. So you're telling me that there's $75 billion locked in Eigenlayer at the end of the cycle. And Eigenlayer is sitting at like not, $800 million market cap right now. That doesn't make sense. Obviously, fully diluted is different. But yeah, basically to me the chart looks very similar to Ethereum actually in the early days. But obviously this is not, something that is probably going to play out, but I do think that the chart is similar in that way. So I do think that we could see, a $15 eigenlayer, something like that, um, by the end of this like mini cycle that we're going to go through. Um, but yeah, let's take a look also at so yeah, I mean $75 billion locked, plus let's say they get some growth naturally from Sharplink Gaming, et cetera, all these people that are going to restake. Also, Ether Machine, I think, is going to do a lot of restaking. So that's another one that's going to come online. The guy, Andrew Keys, who is the primary CEO of Ether Machine, he owns like 9% of his net worth, he said, is in Eigenlayer, which his net worth is like billions. So um, he probably owns like a large percentage of the Eigen supply and he wants it to pump. So he's going to do a lot of restaking because at the end of the day, how do you differentiate yourself as a um, treasury company? You want to generate the highest returns. So to me, restaking is just such an obvious thing that's going to happen, especially as time goes on, it gets less and less risky. And so as time goes on, these companies just move more and more assets into Eigenlayer. Um, and so the revenues increase, and increase. So let's take a look real quick at Abra Silver. I just wanted to show this because it is the same exact chart, as you can see as AAVE. Um, it's crazy actually. This is actually one of the craziest. Even this part, back here, and it's actually similar time frame too. Like AAVE was doing this like 2018, 2019 sort of, and that's kind of where this is as well. I don't really know why this is the case, that these are so similar. But I mean, the charts are just exactly the same. And so right now, you know, we are, technically based on the charts, sort of in this range right before the pop. And that would make sense because it's taken about 6 months for this to pop. So, Ave seasonality is not great right now. That's the only thing I think that might hold us back and kind of chop us around in this range a little bit longer. When I look at the range, I would say we're, from 250 to 300 is really the range that I would look at. If we go below that, I would feel a little bit weird about it, but it's not going to kill us if we come back and test like 170, 200, something like that. I don't think that's going to happen at all. I do think we'll just chop in the 250 to 300 range for maybe a month longer. If you look back, and this is another thing, I think we're basically almost in the exact same location as October 2020. So it's like the same, everything's the same. And if we look back in October of 2020, we had a major like crash for Aave. And it went down to that, basically where we're at now in terms of the weekly moving averages. It's it sort of tested the same weekly moving averages it's testing right now. So you could also say maybe we're a few months ahead and maybe we're like here, potentially where we're sort of crashed like a couple weeks and then we moon. I don't know. I don't think that's the case. I think it's going to take a little bit longer to accumulate in this range, especially for Ethereum. Um, I can try to take some of these drawings off that I did from last time, but just to show that, this is so bullish. We have a massive um, wedge breakout here, and then we tested that outside of that wedge, which was also the 20-week. Perfect. And funny enough, it was actually exactly almost the same thing that it did in 2020 around this time. Um, so if we look at also sort of how this played out in 2020, um, we can sort of draw this line a little bit like this. When we broke out and then we kind of retested, we didn't really fully retest it, um, but it was very similar. We broke out and we broke out here and then we sort of retested. So that's kind of where I think we're at right before sort of the big moon that will come in the next like 6 months. Um, and this is actually just a chart of the NASDAQ from I think the 90s. It's very similar, super, super similar. Everything about it, even this last shakeout here, um, it's really following it closely. You could say we're sort of like in this kind of area here. So maybe we do have like one more, shakeout or whatever. And I'm not even gonna show, I mean I could, but yeah, it's just it goes crazy, obviously. Like so it's possible again that this is like a super cycle of tokenization and like complete change of the economy that goes towards smart contracts. Ethereum is better in every way than the traditional financial system. It's more secure, better settlement 24/7, um, social governance, voting capabilities, privacy in the future. So, I'm not even naming all the things, but I think it's possible that ETH over a long enough time frame and AAVE could go up significant amounts, maybe 50x, something like that. And so AAVE being like the main bank of the Ethereum ecosystem, and if everything's tokenized, then AAVE is the platform that has the most time in DeFi, the most security, the most battle tested, right? And that's what Ethereum is, the most battle-tested network. You don't need it to be super fast. You don't need it to be super low cost. As long as it's the most secure. That's what's the most important for real world assets. So if they are bringing them on chain, I think probably those three coins are going to benefit the most. And that's kind of where my trade and everything is going. So um, hopefully you got something out of the video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and have a great rest of your day. And enjoy this cycle. Hopefully, you just stay patient and try not to be greedy. Try to think long term. And if you are trading, just do, super low leverage. Don't do high leverage trading for the cycle because you'll get shaken out like days like today. So yeah, thanks everyone.